Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia. Listen up. WynnBET is now live in all these states, and the excitement of Wynn Las Vegas has finally landed in online sports betting and casino play. From boosted parlays to live in-game offs on every major sport, WynnBET gives you the tools to win. Sign up today for your risk-free $1,000 sports bet. Download the WynnBET app now or visit wynnbet.com to start winning.
You're listening to the Huddle Up Podcast with Chad Jensen and Zack Kelberman. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com and sound off. And now it's time to drop some knowledge.
Good. So welcome in, everybody. It is the Huddle Up Podcast, presented as always by Mile High Huddle and powered by Blue Wire Podcasts. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, I wanted to pick your brain on this, the latest odds of who's going to land Aaron Rodgers. But first things first, a lot of people listen to this podcast, tens of thousands of people, not all of whom are in Denver, and they don't necessarily know what's been going on today. We learned the Broncos' the names of Denver's true finalists. There's three guys: Dan Quinn, Nathaniel Hackett, Kevin O'Connell. And guess who got there first for interview number 2? Nathaniel Hackett today, this morning. Is that a tell, Zach? Does that mean he should be considered the front runner?
Well, Mike Kliss used that word. So if Kliss uses that, and he's been, I think, one of the guys in the legacy Broncos media kind of pining for Dan Quinn, then he should be considered the front runner. And there's plenty of time for activities in Dove Valley today with the Step Brothers fan, Nathaniel Hackett and George Payton. A couple things work to his advantage. Obviously, they want to talk to Quinn. They haven't set up a time and a date for that yet because he's in such a demand around the NFL. But getting the second interview, having that second impression with George Payton, that can mean a lot. He can close the deal tonight. We haven't heard much out of Dove Valley since that interview began. And I think no news is good news for Nathaniel Hackett at this point. But George Payton, his thoroughness, Chad, shines through. I talked about on Twitter the last time they changed head coaches, when they fired Vance and hired Vic Fangio. That entire process from firing to hiring took 9 days. It's been 15 days since Vic was fired, and they're now first going through second interviews. So George Payton is going to be thorough. He's going to be patient. He's going to take his time. The longer it drags on, though, as the week goes on, we don't hear anything. I think that tends to point to good things for O'Connell, who's become the dark horse in this race, the third guy. They can't set up a second meeting with him until after Sunday, which is the NFC title game. So if they are apt to wait for him, then we'll hear more silence as the week goes on. But Hackett had first dibs today, and we'll have to see how he shook out.
Christian, thank you for the super chat, buddy. He says, from the looks of things, it looks like Hackett's going to be the guy in the coming hours or days. I'm looking, Zach, for any tweets from the mouthpieces of a dinner, anything like that, because when George Payton was brought in for interview number 2, by the time they went to dinner, it was a done deal. They were just going to have drinks and shoot the BS while the guys back at Dove Valley executed and ironed out the details of the contract with George Payton's agent. Now, look, if I'm the Broncos, I mean, this is obvious, Zach. Listen up, Broncos country. TickPick should be your first choice to buy football tickets because they save fans money by never charging any service fees ever. TickPick is the exclusive ticketing partner for the Huddle Up Podcast and the Blue Wire Network.
Denver Broncos football is finally back, and there's no need to exhaust yourself searching all over the internet to find Broncos tickets anymore, because TickPick, that's TickPick, is the original no-fee ticket site and the only one you'll ever need as your go-to for all NFL tickets. TickPick got rid of all those awful service fees that the other ticket sites charge, which lets them guarantee the best prices on all of their NFL tickets. Don't believe it? If you can find better prices for the same seats on another ticket site, TickPick will give you 110% of the difference in the purchase price.
That's right, guys. When we were searching for tickets for the MHH meet and greet for week 3 at home, Broncos versus Jets, TickPick had us locked down. So visit tickpick.com/huddle today and use the promo code HUDDLE to save $10 on your first order of Broncos tickets. The guy that you want the most is the guy that you're probably trying to move mountains to get there the soonest, right? The first. In the case of Nathaniel Hackett, you could be wrong. I could be wrong. He might not be the number one front runner. It could be Dan Quinn, but it just so happened that Quinn had a corresponding deal with New York Giants, that this job in Denver wasn't important enough to him, or the signals that George Paton has sent to Dan Quinn weren't solid enough for Dan Quinn to say, all right, I'm going to go ahead and cancel that New York Giants interview and come to Denver to beat Hackett. He knows just as well as any coach out there. Right now, the chips are down, and it'll be an upset, to be honest with you. If Nathaniel Hackett emerges from Denver without the job, it'll be an upset.
Well, I've tried to kind of bring up the possibility that the Giants job could be the apple of Quinn's eye, and Dan Quinn might not be this slam dunk that we've been led to believe that he is. He interviewed today in East Rutherford. He's a New Jersey native who grew up a diehard Giants fan, and interestingly, Chad, after his interview, it was reported the Giants had an interview request for Dallas secondary coach Joe Witt Jr. Witt Jr. worked under Quinn in Dallas, so it leads me to believe he's building his staff in preparation of getting the Giants head coaching job. I'm feeling Hackett right now. Yesterday at this time, I was feeling Quinn, and I felt like it was all Quinn, and that was the first signal they sent out, and that was the signal they were going to end up going with, but 3 candidates, 2 of them are offensive-minded. I think that says something as well.
Because George Paton did a good job of keeping a lid on who's coming in for those second interviews and when and in what order. You know, we didn't really know, Zach, till Nathaniel Hackett was boots on the ground, right? The tarmac. Mike Kliss sending out the video of Hackett emerging from the jet.
From the bushes.
Straight up from the bushes. Straight up. So
love Mike.
I think there's a reason why George Paton was so clandestine and decided to go ahead and hold some of that information this time around. But I got to assume Dan Quinn knows that. I got to assume Dan Quinn understands that probably the only hitch in the giddy up here that would keep Hackett from getting the job is some sort of contractual demand that maybe if George Paton didn't like a certain dollar figure or something, or his masters and on top, you know, Joe Ellis has to rubber stamp the salary of any head coach offer, I would imagine, on the business side, right? So, you know, if Nathaniel Hackett made some sort of outside the box contract demand, maybe that shakes things back up, but it's lining up for Dan Quinn to take New York, Hackett to take Denver. And unfortunately for Kevin O'Connell, who is a very good candidate, he might have to wait till the next cycle. He might, depending on how deep into the playoffs, well, depending on whether or not the Rams go to the Super Bowl.
I'm just glad it won't be Jonathan Gannon, Gerard Mayo, Aaron Glenn. I was worried about Gannon for a little bit. I'm not going to lie. It seemed like they were really impressed by him and a first-time defensive coordinator. You brought up a great point yesterday, shades of VJ. They can't go through that again. It's easier to sell Dan Quinn than it would have been Jonathan Gannon, but this was a great candidate pool. And if O'Connell doesn't get a job now, he'll get a job certainly at a later time. Same for Brian Callahan, Kellen Moore, hopefully Eric Bieniemy as well. This was a really deep offensive pool to choose from, and the fact the Broncos, their 3 finalists are Hackett, O'Connell, and Quinn, I can live with that. I just hope Peyton kind of reads the room and reads the writing on the wall in Dove Valley. Every single Broncos fan I come across on my timeline on Twitter wants an offensive guy. Some want O'Connell, some want Hackett. The majority don't want Dan Quinn. I hope Peyton can pick up on that.
Kenneth Patterson brings up something that I too, kind of an emotion that I felt yesterday watching the Bills Chiefs. He says, yesterday's game made me realize just how far behind the Broncos are and how badly they need a quarterback that can run. The Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady's of the world seem suddenly outdated. Now, that second part I'm not so sure about, but the general sentiment that I wanted to echo here, Zach, is watching that phenomenal final, 5 minutes of the game. You realize how far behind the pack the Denver Broncos are at quarterback. I mean, the miracles that Josh Allen worked in that game only to come up short just because he wasn't the last one to have the ball. Like Patrick Mahomes, also not equally, he worked one additional miracle that Josh Allen couldn't. He got the dub. But I'm watching that game, Zach, and how could you not, from the Bronco perspective, go, as much as you might be inclined to believe there's some upside still in Drew Lock, or maybe he just needs the right coach to unlock that potential or whatever. Laid bare in comparison to those dueling giants yesterday. I mean, it's like, nah, dude, I think in this case, call the spade a spade and go try and find your guy.
Yeah, it's just, it rubs more salt in the wound like we talked about yesterday, considering the Broncos could have drafted Josh Allen, number 5. They went with Bradley Chubb. But as I put on Twitter yesterday, Josh Allen wouldn't have been this Josh Allen in Denver. Not with Vic Fangio, not with Vance Joseph, not with Pat Shurmur, Bill Musgrave. Brian Daboll is also another guy. I think if Quinn doesn't get the Giants job, Brian Daboll will, because they just hired the former Bills assistant GM to be the GM there. So great coaching in Buffalo. Their defense blew it big time, though. 2 great Titan quarterbacks, and we were robbed, Chad, of an additional drive in that game. Mm-hmm. And I know people are squabbling over the OT rules right now. Selfishly, though, I wanted to see what Josh Allen could have done with one more opportunity.
The rules are the rules, Yeah, it is what it is. In a perfect world, yeah, you'd have liked to have seen Josh Allen get a shot, but he got a shot, man. And unfortunately, in that particular game, you can point to overtime, but Josh Allen, if he wanted to really secure that dub, all the histrionics and the fireworks, he should have turned that on in the third quarter, instead of the last 5 minutes. Not to say he was bad all game. He wasn't. That's not what I'm getting at. But in terms of really leading the charge and putting some, trying to put some distance between you and Patrick Mahomes would have been nice. Jacob says, all aboard the Bengals bandwagon. Yes. Yeah, it's Bengals or bust in the hearts of Broncos country. And then on the NFC side, Zach, what are you hoping to see?
I'm happy for Vaughn. I'm happy for some players on that Rams team. And I don't know. I like the 49ers. I love Kyle Shanahan. I'm not a Jimmy G guy, though, so it's hard for me to root for him, but I love what Kyle Shanahan's doing. I'm hoping for a Rams-Bengals Super Bowl. I think that can be pretty fun, but Kansas City, I don't think. If Mahomes plays that way and can lead a game-tying drive with 13 seconds, I mean, I don't see how even Joe Burrow, as good as he's playing and as good as Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan are coaching, they're going to stop him. But hopefully we get as entertaining of a game as we saw all this past weekend.
Something magical is going on in Cincy, though. Like, I'm not going to put it past him, but you think about that with Buffalo, just how good Josh Allen was when the chips were down in the clutch, and it still wasn't good enough. The freaking matador that is Patrick Mahomes, like, you just can't quite get him, man. You just can't quite get him.
Like we also talked about, though, it's more than just one component. Like when the Broncos were losing games with either Locke or Bridgewater, hardly it was ever just one thing. There's multiple components to a game, and you can have a great offense and you can have a great game script and play calling, but if your defense lets you down, and situational coaching from McDermott, why would you not kick off shallow toward the end and make Kansas City run it back and waste 5 seconds? You would have chewed up one more play. But that's the small things, the minutia of a game that goes into a win, and so often the Broncos lack the complete minutia.
Here's the thing, too. If you're George Payton watching that game, you can't hire Dan Quinn. If you're George Payton watching that game, you tried the whole let's fight fire with water. You got to fight the fire with fire. You got to find a guy who can help you create a conflagration, Zach, a blaze. Michael, you demand. Thank you, buddy.
That was
Appreciate
a good word.
You. That is on par with what's happening in KC, with what's happening in Cincy, with what's happening in Buffalo, and so on and so forth. And there's no guarantee Nathaniel Hackett's the guy that can help you do that. But relative to Dan Quinn and just that energy, I mean, the first step, Zach, and let's get to this here from the bettors out there, I should say. First step for Dan Quinn, or pardon me, Nathaniel Hackett, if he is indeed hired, got to get that quarterback situation solved. Is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? You're going to go back to the well and draft your guy for Nathaniel Hackett, let him be involved in who that guy's going to be. But the Vegas folk, Zach, they're giving Denver the best odds to land Aaron Rodgers come week 1 of the 2022 season. The end of this last season, at least for Green Bay, is still so fresh that I have a hard time reading into any of this, but you're going to see the Broncos become a darling for Rodgers if indeed Hackett is hired.
And there's some separation in the odds there. It's not like 200 and 250 or two teams at 250. It's the Broncos and then the Steelers. So they're the odds-on favorite right now. I had some clown say that I made those odds up. That's from sportsbetting.ag. They don't believe Rodgers, as of today, is going to come back to Green Bay. And if he does leave Green Bay and continues playing, as you see right there, the Broncos are the betting favorite. One more point to this. I'm going to probably write a story around it. Matt Schneidman, I believe is his name. He's the Packers athletic beat writer. He had a podcast where he predicted after the Green Bay loss that the Broncos are going to end up with, get ready for this haul, Nathaniel Hackett, Luke Getsy, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams. It's going to be a blockbuster offseason at the price of 4 first-round picks, but that's the vibe coming out of Green Bay right now. It can be a green and yellow takeover in the Mile High City.
Aaron Rodgers, man, even 3 first-round picks. Do you still have that fire in your belly, Aaron? Do you have it? Do you want to go on this odyssey with us? You know, what was it that Aaron Rodgers said? Remind everybody, Zach, when Nathaniel Hackett became a candidate for these different head coaching opportunities, he put out a statement but was it at the podium or was he on the McAfee show, what he had to say about Nathaniel Hackett?
McAfee, yeah, he talked again, and it's been a continuing theme every time Rodgers brought him up about his personality, about his energy, his infectious attitude toward the game. He said he's been fantastic to work with, and he really sold him as a future head coach. Same thing, interestingly enough, for Packers quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator Luke Getsy, who interviewed for the Broncos job. One more point about that. A lot of news has come out today, Chad. Matt LaFleur said today that if he expects Nathaniel Hackett to land a head coaching job, hint, hint, and if he does, they would promote from within.
Luke, don't leave us.
Right. They also have Adam Sternovich, I think is his name. He's another up-and-coming young hot commodity. They can promote him, but it's not looking like it's a slam dunk package deal of Nathaniel Hackett and Luke Getsy. That's fine, though. I'd be just as happy with Nathaniel Hackett alone.
Well, if we look at Luke Getsy's resume, he's been in Green Bay since the hire of LaFleur. So since 2019, he's been working with Hackett. Let me see. His previous stop before that was in Mississippi State for 1 year, and then he was in the old Green Bay regime. He was in the McCarthy regime for 4 seasons, Zach, from 2014 through 17 as a quality control guy and then coaching receivers. And then really quick here, Nathaniel Hackett. Let me just pull this up. I want to see. I'm trying to remember exactly the dates. That's one of the unfortunate lasting effects of the old virus. Zach, is the mental fog a little bit. I got to have something I'm actually looking at. The command isn't quite there. But, yeah, 3 years they've been together, all 3 of those years. And we'll see if they can keep it going, Zach. And Claude says that with Hackett and, dare I say, Rodgers, how long till we're making a legit run at that 4th ring, hypothetically, of course?
2022. That's not me being a homer. It's not me being biased because we're close to the Broncos and we all have some rooting interest to an extent. You get Aaron Rodgers on this team and Nathaniel Hackett calling the plays with that ready-made offense, that ready-made defense. That's a playoff caliber roster without Aaron. You put them on there, they will contend for the West. They will contend for a title in 2022, assuming they stay healthy and assuming Aaron plays to the level he's played the last couple of years.
Hey, shout out to each and every one of our star supporters on Facebook. You guys, thank you so much for everything that you do for the Huddle Up Pod, for all the different Mile High Huddle podcasts. We love you. We, as a token of our appreciation, we're running a contest again this month. When we reach 250,000 stars on Facebook in the month of January, we will raffle off a Broncos jersey of the winner's choosing. Only people in the running for that are those who contributed to the goal. And we're currently at 67% complete. All right, so we might need to juice it here as we approach the home stretch of January. But here's who's going to have the most tickets in the hat if the contest ended today. Jacob Foster, Michael Ronquillo, Rodney Garcia, Miguel Santisteban, Doug Raquel, Shane Daniels, Travis Weber, Andrew Baker, Pete Middleton at 9, Jermaine Daughtry at 10, and then a few names like Mark Schrader and Travis Tarbox and Phil McLaughlin. Joshua Mize. So appreciate each and every one of you. Lawrence says, and thank you for the stars, big dog. These are coaches that could never get to a Super Bowl with their current team and are kind of considered sucky by their own team's fans. So you mean the 3 finalists? Okay. No, who are we talking about?
Scott says the rejects.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think that's what he's talking about. I don't know what Lawrence is trying to say. It seems to me I read that the same as you did.
Oh, Glenn. All right. Yeah, Glenn, Gannon, etc.
Okay.
I got you.
I was wrong too then.
I mean, look, Gannon, if George Payton was the 4D chess thinker that we've all been led to believe that he is, he was never going to hire Gannon. Gannon's too much of a risk, man.
Well,
even if he was an offensive guy, Zach, a 1-year coordinator with 0 success where he's at, it's like Lawrence is saying, no, the 3 finalists.
Scott's like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
To each their own, Lawrence. I mean, you choose from a pool when you have 10 candidates, 6 of the brightest offensive minds in the NFL. 2 of them are your finalists, including the Packers OC and the Rams OC. And then you have the experienced leader of men in Dan Quinn. You can do worse than that 3.
Dude, look at it like this. Falcons fans had nothing but bad to say about Kyle Shanahan right before he got hired as the Niners head coach because of the taste that was left in their mouth in the Super Bowl. After the emotions on that settled, of course, you don't know what you got till it's gone, right? Like the Stones song. The same can be said for put yourself as a fan in the shoes of a Packers fan right now. You're like, come on, man, Nathaniel Hackett, we couldn't muster more than whatever it was, 10 points, or put yourself in Dan Quinn's or Cowboys shoes. Come on, Dan, we couldn't get past this. It's understandable that fans right now, for 3 coaches whose teams have been, with the exception of O'Connell, I guess, 2 coaches who've been 86 from the playoffs, those fans aren't happy right now with anything. It's going to take time for that sting to wear off.
I mean, I appreciate Tommy here carrying the water for Lawrence, but just because they're not going to win the Super Bowl doesn't make them unattractive candidates. That's like saying you wouldn't want Sean Payton or Bill Belichick because they didn't make the playoffs. You wouldn't have them want to coach the Broncos right now. I don't agree with that argument. You can make the case for any of the 3 candidates. I happen to believe, and Chad does as well, they need a young, up-and-coming offensive mind, not a defensive mind for a 3rd time in a row, but this is a better crop of candidates than they had by far in 2019.
I mean, look, to my knowledge, Mike Shanahan is the only head coach this team has hired on the heels freshly of a world championship. Led the Niners as offensive coordinator to a world championship with Steve Young in 94, and then promptly came back and took the head coach job from Pat Bowlen in 95. Antonio Aragon, what's good, my friend? It's great to see you. Longtime Super Chat superstar, very generous. Really appreciate that. He says, what's up, Priest? Really hopeful that we get Hackett. I know our Broncos will make the playoffs next year. Hashtag Broncos country. Hackett, hey, man, I think it would be a huge step in the right direction. But, Zach, then you come back to the age-old obstacle. Quarterback. What are you going to do at quarterback? And you know what? It's going to make it much easier to woo Aaron Rodgers. But even then, Zach, Packers have to play ball. Packers have to be willing to trade Aaron Rodgers. And it's all these factors that the Broncos don't really have much control in that make you doubt that it could even happen. But for all we know, Zach, Aaron Rodgers will do some thinking. Come March 16th, he'll stand up and say, hey, thanks, but no thanks. I'm out. I'm retiring. Peace. See you in the Hall of Fame in 5 years or 6 years or whatever it is. Be prepared for that as a possibility. I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but it wouldn't surprise me.
They could also trade for Jordan Love. I'm joking, guys. It kind of reminds me, it's setting up to be the same thing as, remember the Tony Romo brief sweepstakes in 2017 before he checked out to call games for CBS? That's where I think Aaron Rodgers could lean, and especially because of the Jeopardy co-hosting he did a couple years ago. Appreciate you, Michaela. One more point about the quarterbacks before we address the Duchess, Chad. If they do get Nathaniel Hackett, he's worked with a younger quarterback like Love and also a veteran like Aaron Rodgers, so they can go either direction if they want to get a Band-Aid, be it Rodgers or somebody else, or draft a young guy. I'd be inclined to think if they went for Quinn, they would get a veteran quarterback. If they went with Hackett, they would get more than likely a rookie quarterback.
Well, here's the thing. And by the way, Michaela, thank you so much for that very, very generous super chat. You are the Duchess here at MHH. We love you. We appreciate you. And by the way, if we hold a meet and greet hangout at the draft in Vegas, are you going to be there? You're going to make the trek. I know it's a hop, skip, and a jump from the Mile High City, but if you can make it, that would be rad. She says, I would be happy with either Hackett or O'Connell. Let's do it. O'Connell's interesting too. O'Connell is maybe close to equally interesting to me as far as Hackett is concerned, just because seeing what Zach Snyder did, man, seeing what Matt LaFleur did in Green Bay, Zach Taylor. I'm thinking freaking not Avengers, Justice League over here. Seeing what those coaches who have sprung off the McVay tree up to this point, who've gotten the opportunity, Zach, they're knocking it out of the park. You know, I don't know. That's a tough one, but George Payton can feel, I think, a little bit the walls closing in, and I feel like he's probably a little bit worried that if he waits till O'Connell will be available to interview and things don't go perfectly in that interview, then what? Because then maybe Hackett's taking another job. Quinn's already signed up with the Giants, whatever. So I think you're going to strike while the iron's hot. And the iron's hot right now. Hackett's in town. There's a reason he came first. I think he's going to be the hire.
There's a lot to like about O'Connell as well. And I can talk myself into KOC really, really quickly, even over someone like Nathaniel Hackett, who's long been my first choice. I would rather pluck from, you can argue, the McVay coaching tree and not the Matt LaFleur coaching tree. You talked about some of the coaches around McVay that have had success, and O'Connell is so highly regarded in Los Angeles. He might not call plays in LA, but he's involved in game planning. He's involved in the weekly and the daily grind, forming that McVay offense, working with Stafford and company. A young guy, creative mind, just what the Broncos need, the shot in the arm. If they go with him, I'd be very happy as well.
I just want to go over real quick as a refresher for everybody. This is Nathaniel Hackett's resume, all right, with the Packers the last 3 years as OC. Before that, he was the offensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars from 16 through 18. And then before that, he was also, that first year, he held QB's coach and OC. And then in 2015, he was just the QB's coach. Predating that, he was the offensive coordinator under Doug Marrone in Buffalo. All right. And then predating that, Syracuse as a quarterback's coach, coordinator, passing game coordinator, etc. This dude's been with Buffalo many times, Zach. And then there he was in 08, 09. That his second NFL job as a quality control. His first NFL job, let me confirm, yes, Tampa Bay in 06, 07. So he's a Gruden guy too. That's interesting, Zach. That's interesting. And that's similar to, McVay. McVay's like a spring off both the Shanahan and the Gruden tree. Hackett is too. It's just maybe a little bit more of a longer, windier path getting him, back to the source of his coaching resume.
Hopefully no one checks Hackett's emails like old John Gruden, but everyone talks about what he didn't do in Jacksonville or the fact they had Blake Bortles. They were an efficient offense, even with Bortles, and he was a big reason, obviously, for that. And Scott made a good point on a recent episode of Broncos for Breakfast where he made the case for or against the Hackett, whatever it was, and he brought up the quarterbacks he worked with in Buffalo. Spoiler, it wasn't Josh Allen. They were the likes of Tyrod Taylor, E.J. Manuel, and he made chicken salad out of chicken you-know-what. And that's what the Broncos need. It's the antithesis of what Pat Shurmur did and was, which was chicken you-know-what. They need to go away from that and embrace the salad.
So here's what's important to note as well. In fact, I'll do one more share screen on this because Nathaniel Hackett was the quarterback's coach for Blake Bortles, his best statistical year. All right, so 2015, that was Hackett's first year with Bortles. All right, this is 1 year after he had been drafted. What was he, number 3 overall, I want to say, in 2014. So 2015, Hackett gets there, all right, as his position coach. The Jags did not have a good season as a team. They went 5-11, but Bortles produced career highs in yards and tutties, also in picks. But that was his second year in the NFL.
Wait, Chad, you mean second-year quarterbacks throw picks and turn the ball over? I thought that was only Drew Lock. Wow,
I know.
I'm surprised.
It's shocking. My jaw's on the floor. Bortles third year, Hackett's second with him. He kind of treads water, 3,900 yards, still a very formidable season. 23 tutties, 16 picks, so he's a little bit more efficient in terms of TD to INT ratio. Then you get to 2017, and this is the year the Jags had some real team success, came 2 quarters away from the Super Bowl. Not as prolific statistically was Bortles, but he still passed for 3,600 yards in 16 starts. All right, 21 tutties, 13 picks. So this is a coach, Zach, the bottom line, that could, you want to talk about, like, as you say, making chicken salad out of chicken excrement, let's just say, imagine what he might be able to do with Drew Lock if all other avenues to upgrade the position fail, or, the Broncos are stymied. That's a positive harbinger. And that, I would assume, Zach, is one of the big reasons he's in Denver first for that second interview, because George Paton knows nothing's guaranteed on Aaron Rodgers. Nothing's guaranteed on Russ Wilson. Nothing's guaranteed on landing that quarterback you might love in the draft. The one thing you can guarantee is you'll have Drew Lock this year. What's your plan, Nathaniel? Remember, that's one of the things George Paton said in his his press conference. Well, actually, it wasn't in the presser. It was the next day, or no, maybe same day. Either way, on KOA radio, he said, I'm going to talk to these coaches and I'm going to ask them what their plan would be for Drew Lock, because yes, Drew Lock factors into 2022.
Listen, I'm a big Drew Lock guy. I've said it a billion times before, but he's not my plan A to go into the 2022 season as the starting quarterback. But you can do so much worse as your plan E or plan F, your drop dead option, emergency option. If that's the fallback, the last resort is Drew Lock, then the Broncos are in decent hands, especially, again, if you have a play caller more in tune with Lock's abilities. You saw what he can do under Scangarello. I'm going to bring it up one more time, 4-1 with a coordinator that, played into his abilities. I think Nathaniel Hackett would bring that energy. They'd be best of friends, I feel like. Same personality, very childlike, ambitious personalities. I think they would do well together. But that's in a last resort, and you can imagine what the Broncos can do with a better quarterback. That's why having someone with an offensive background is so key for the Broncos' future.
Gotta have that expertise. Jonathan Figueroa in the house. Good to see you, my friend. He says, thank you for the super chat, by the way. Hackett will be our new coach, and I can't wait. I do really think somehow, some way, Peyton gets Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. I really do think he's going to do it. Pardon me. If George Paton pulls that off, man, it'll be a Elway-esque. I'm talking the first half of his GM legacy, all right? Elway-esque achievement, because, you made the right head coaching hire. That would definitely help grease the wheels, Zach, to get Aaron Rodgers here and to move whatever mountains are going to need to be moved to get Aaron here. I mean, dude, we'd be talking coach or, executive of the year if the team goes on to do what you would expect it to do with Aaron Rodgers under center.
Man, it's fun to think about for sure. I would be all for it from an entertainment standpoint, but if you make that deal, you better win a Super Bowl the first year. And you better be close to undefeated, because you're talking about giving up 4 first-round picks for Devontae, or I know he's a free agent, but, Aaron Rodgers. That's what the Packers beat said. 4 first-round picks for Rodgers, and to have Devontae as a package deal. I don't know that Peyton would rid himself of such resources for a 39-year-old quarterback. Doesn't seem like the direction he wants to go. And hand out a fat contract to a receiver after paying Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick. So it's a pipe dream, but it's one worth thinking about.
Rodney, you demand. Appreciate the stars. And KB, Kenneth Booker, staff writer at MHH, says, should Denver consider adding Clint Kubiak as offensive coordinator if it ends up being Dan Quinn? Zach, what are your thoughts there? And then we'll grab Mark Rich.
I mean, that'd be a parallel move for Kubiak, and I don't think he'd want to follow in his father's footsteps in Denver. I think he wants to build his own legacy, and for next year, he's a head coaching candidate, I guess, but I don't want that. I don't want any previous ties. I want a whole fresh start.
Fresh start. Mark Rich, appreciate you. He says, what's up, Priest? Here in enemy territory, Vegas. You may have talked on this previously, but saw Daniel Jeremiah's first mock. He has us taking Kenny Pickett at 9. Thoughts? #state of being. That's awesome, dude. For the draft, you better be there. We want to see you, my friend. All right. We'll release some information on that when it gets just a little bit closer. But we touched on this a little bit last night. Yes, indeed. Daniel Jeremiah released his first mock. It's Kenny Pickett, quarterback. Pittsburgh at 9. If it's Hackett, I like it. I like it. If you at a certain point, you got to take a chance on that quarterback class. You can't just necessarily, if the need is there. Well, let me put it this way. You got to believe that quarterback is a day one upgrade over Drew Lock, or at least he could be a day one upgrade by the time you get to week 1. You got to believe that. And I'm not certain that Kenny Pickett would be, all right, at this stage. I'm still kind of forming my opinions on these quarterbacks. But if George Payton felt that way, if Nathaniel Hackett, were he to be hired, felt that way, then I could get behind it.
I can't do it at 9. I just can't. You want to trade down to 19 or so, 20, whatever, pick up some capital. That's fine with me. You want to gamble on a quarterback, not a number 9. That's not the year to do it. But I agree with your point that if they are going to gamble and pull the trigger, I'd feel much better about it with Quinn or O'Connell at the controls than I would Dan Quinn. It'd be almost Vic Fangio 2.0 handing a raw quarterback in need of development to a defensive-minded head coach.
Chase Wellner, what's going on? Appreciate you, my friend. He says, would you like any of the other candidates as a defensive coordinator? Well, the only one that you could really woo would be Gerard Mayo, because for Gannon, it would be a lateral move. He'd get blocked by Philly. They're not going to let him leave for a lateral job. Mayo, though, I'd be interested. I would definitely be interested. I'd want to know a little bit more about him. But you know what? They interviewed him. They know at this stage whether or not he can be a play caller. Is he an upgrade over Ed Donatel? What Donatel could do as Fangio's top lieutenant for the last, dating back to San Fran. So 10 years, decade they were together. We'll see if they might stay together. We'll see what ultimately happens. Hackett might come in and say, no, I got my eye on a different head or a defensive coordinator prospect, and his name's Gerard Mayo, maybe. Who knows? But you don't want to take that step back defensively, Zach. And Ed Donatel, even though he wasn't calling plays on a game in and game out basis, I don't have any doubt that he could. I really don't. I don't doubt Ed Donatel is a veteran in the league. I think he could do it. It might take him a couple of games. Those preseason games would be crucial for him to kind of iron out some kinks. But who better that knows Vic Fangio's scheme inside and out? I mean, more so than Brandon Staley, more so than Ronaldo Hill. Who else has sprung off that tree that's having some success in the league? Donatel is older than either of those guys, but way more experienced, and I would argue wiser.
Mayo, I read, is interviewing for the Texans DC job, though, so I don't know that the Broncos are going to get him. I'd be happy with Donatel. I'd be happy with Mike Zimmer. I'd be happy with Don Martindale, Chad. You don't really need to do much when you have a Broncos defense with that much talent. You can argue that Martindale's scheme isn't conducive for Denver, but they have all-pro caliber talent on that. And they just need some continuity, someone who knows the playbook and can keep things in place. Where they need to devote the resources, where they need the genius is on the offensive side of the ball. That's why, again, it's so crucial they nail this coaching hire, preferably with Nathaniel Hackett.
Indeed. Howie, good to see you, my friend. He says, hey, guys, hey, gents, can you break down the Rams OC? Don't know much about him. Yeah, we can talk some Kevin O'Connell. Let me pull up his resume. Stand by 1 second. We'll take a gander at this cat. Go to Wiki.
Oh, and yes, Son of Bum is for sure always welcome back in Denver.
All right. So here's what you need to know about Kevin O'Connell. All right. First of all, this cat's only 36 years old. All right. Former, obviously, NFL player, right? Former quarterback, third-round pick of New England back in 2008. As a coach, started as a Browns quarterbacks coach in 2015. So that's interesting. He went from Chargers practice squad, then he was out of the NFL for 4 years. Let's see what he did real quick. Let's see what happened after his, coaching career. So there's no mention here, Zach, that he did anything in college before becoming the quarterbacks coach in Cleveland. But 2015, Cleveland QB coach, Niners as a special projects just quality control probably. Washington as a QB's coach in 17. Washington as QB's coach and passing game coordinator in 18. So that was still under the Jay Gruden era, right? If I remember correctly, in Washington. And then 19 Washington, and then in 2020, he came to be the offensive coordinator under Sean McVay. So that's that's the cliff notes, Zach, on this cat's resume.
And it just comes down to preference. If you feel like who's a better mentor as an offensive mind, Matt LaFleur or Sean McVay, that would be the type of coach that you would lean toward. I think McVay is obviously the trailblazer. He's the template for young, hotshot coaches, and more have sprung off his tree than LaFleur's tree. So, again, if it's O'Connell or Nathaniel Hackett, the point is still the same. They are going in the right direction. Where the flow of the NFL is going right now, where it's pointing, and I'd be happy with either hire.
What I really like about him, too, is that he is a former quarterback, and not just in a nominal sense, Zach, where, he played a little bit. It's kind of like Byron Leftwich. I mean, he hung around in the league. Leftwich was more of a starter, obviously, than O'Connell was. But I'll read a couple things here really quick. 7 years NFL coaching experience. The Rams, once they acquired Matthew Stafford, posted a marked improvement. This is according to the Denver Broncos. In their overall production, the team ranked 9th in total offense, 7th in scoring, and was in the league's top 5, both in passing yards and touchdowns. And while the Rams offense is seen largely as Sean McVay's realm, O'Connell has an integral role. Let me read you this quote from Greg Beecham. Hold on. He says, quote, "The thing about Kevin O'Connell is he's been at the controls of the Rams offense in almost every way except actually calling the plays for 2 years, which makes him a guy who's seen what Sean McVay does and what makes the Rams so successful over the last 5 years. And there's only a handful of guys in the world who can say that. 3 of the other assistants who can say that are currently head coaches of their own teams, and 2 are still in the playoffs along with Sean McVay." This was last week. So the pedigree is impeccable. There's no doubt Kevin is the next guy in that lineage, Zach.
But can he lead? Can he own a room when he walks into it? I don't know enough about him to make that determination, but we've seen Nathaniel Hackett. We've seen the energy that he brings and his coaching acumen and his technique. That's what George Paton's looking for. It's not just, like he said, offense or defense or what you know from an X's and O's standpoint. You want a leader of men. So the better of the two in terms of who can lead the entire team is going to get the job, if not Quinn.
We got Mark Lindemood that's got some additional skin in this game. Hold on to Nathan 1 second. He says, "My Packer fan wife is going to relegate me to the couch if we get A-Rod." Hey, man, that just might be one you'll have to take for the team, all right, if it happens. Nathan, good to see you, my friend. Thank you for the super. He says, "Bring Hackett, Getsy, but leave the Green Bay special teams coach." Yes, indeed. Tabitha, thank you for the star support, my friend.
I'm just happy another fan base felt Broncos country's pain when it comes to special teams. I mean, he made Tom McMahon look competent, though. It's quite the feat.
Marcus Lewis Henna across the pond. Hi, guys. Love and respect from the UK to all Broncos fans. Ashish says there's no way Peyton's given 3 first-rounders to get Rodgers. Did not even give 2 first-rounders for a much younger Stafford. What makes you think he would give 3 for Rodgers? He'd only get him for the right deal, Zach.
Well, I agree with that, but Stafford is not Rodgers. And that's not every quarterback is apples to apples. You know, there's tiers of quarterbacks. There's the Mahomes and the Allens and the Rodgers, and then there's the Staffords and the like. So I wouldn't give up 3 for him either, but I wouldn't compare Stafford and Rodgers in the same sentence.
On the topic, this is something Scott mentioned. I was thinking this, but then comment comes up and you go, it's like playing whack-a-mole, which I love. That's one of the things we love about these live streams is the topics go every which way. We're talking with you. We're not talking at you. But talking about leadership and can this man command a room, only time will tell. But he, as a former quarterback, right, Kevin O'Connell has some leadership bona fides, you got to assume, at least to a point, plus 4-year captain at San Diego State. I would imagine he's a pretty charismatic cat, and he knows that Sean McVay thing. Like, to me, I'm not going to shed any tears if the Broncos were to hire O'Connell instead of Hackett. I think either one of those guys could be great for this team. but it feels like it's going to be Hackett. And it's probably not a coincidence. Zach, we don't believe in coincidence on this podcast. It's probably not a coinkadink that hiring Hackett ostensibly is also the one move that would separate you from the rest of the pack out there when Aaron Rodgers, if and when he does hit the trade block, it's going to separate you from all other comers in terms of where does Aaron want to go? He wants to come with his stepbrother's movie quoting coach that, can light up a room.
We might never know, and probably will never know, but I would love to know why Peyton decided on O'Connell as the third finalist when you had a pool that included Kellen Moore and Eric Bieniemy. What was it about O'Connell that really attracted George Payton? I would love to know that answer.
Fernando, good to see you, my friend. He says, good evening, priests. Hope all is well. Yes, it is. If Denver gets Rodgers and all those other assets, will they just keep Drew Lock or try and draft a quarterback later? So if the Broncos land Aaron Rodgers, Drew Lock remains a Bronco for 2022 because he's under contract. The question would be what happens after 2022. My guess, Zach, would be Drew Lock hits the bricks, takes his talents to somewhere where he can, get a snap in edgewise, let's say. But if you get Aaron here, I don't think you're drafting a quarterback in either of the premium rounds because you just are going to have to pay through the nose to get him. You're probably not going to have a first rounder this year and a second rounder. Well, you might have one of your 2 second rounders. Well, who knows at this point? But I would think they'll draft a quarterback because they'll know Drew Lock, 1 year left on the deal. We need to have that kind of like the Broncos did under Peyton all those years. Brock Osweiler, then Zach Dysert. I'm missing one. There was Simeon, etc. You keep kind of churning that just so you got bodies in the event something happens because he's older, longer in the tooth. They'll do that. But if you get Aaron Rodgers, Zach, you're not going to have the capital this year to draft a quarterback high anyway.
Yeah, there was also Austin Davis and Mark Sanchez. God, have we been through a lot the last half decade. I feel like, though, if they get Aaron freaking Rodgers, Lock's going to be like, forget this. I want out. I'm done. I want to get traded to a team that's going to give me a shot. I don't want to sit behind a future Hall of Famer. You guys have done me dirty enough for the last 3 years. So I feel like that could be in the cards as well. But if he wants to remain, why not keep Locke around as a project for Hackett, a veteran experienced backup at that point? You can do a lot worse for what's he going to cost? $2 million for 2022. So I think that's the way to go if you got a veteran.
I want to grab this from Pal and then Nacho Fernandez, for longtime listener, first time contributing, has a question. Scott, I want to grab it 640. Pal says, Chad, welcome back, buddy. Thank you, bud. Chad, Zach, did you guys hear on the fan today? They were talking about whether Jimmy G takes the Niners to the Super Bowl and wins. Do you think Kyle would keep Jimmy G? So, Zach, if the Niners win the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't see any way that he doesn't stay for the last year on his deal. But that's a massive, gargantuan if. Like, the Chiefs look unstoppable, dude. I hate saying it, but they look unstoppable.
I don't think it would be Jimmy G takes the Niners. It'd be the Niners take Jimmy G to the Super Bowl. They're winning almost in spite of him, not because of him. But yeah, you go to a title game and you win one with him at quarterback, just like we talked about with Bridgewater. If he would be the one that would have led the Broncos back to the postseason, they wouldn't have replaced him. They would have brought him back for another year. So one more season on the bench for Trey Lance if it falls out that way. And I hope they do because I want nothing to do with Jimmy G in a Broncos uniform. Keep me the hell away.
I mean, Steve Young, he had to wait a long time. Long time. Nacho Fernandez, appreciate you. Hi, guys. Long-time listener, first-time contributing. Question. After watching the Chiefs and Bills last night, do you guys think we are only a head coach and quarterback away from competing with them? I mean, it might sound oversimplified, but yes, you're the right coach and the right quarterback away. This team has the talent. The Broncos might not have the speed that the Chiefs offense has, which no one does, but they have the horses offensively. They are amongst the most talented at talking skill positions offenses in the NFL. It's just they're missing the quarterback. So if you hire the right head coach and you get Aaron Rodgers as an example, or Russell Wilson as an example, yes, you're in every game going up against the Chiefs. You're no longer going, all right, is it 13? Go ahead and chalk 13th straight loss up. Like, you're not just assuming that. You have more than a fighting chance, Zach, if you got Aaron Rodgers here or Russell Wilson. If you go back to the well and you draft a quarterback, all right, cool. Even if it's the right head coach hire, it's going to take you a couple of years for that dude to percolate, develop, and Bronco fans will be, be eating our hearts out until that happens. But it really does boil down to quarterback in this league. I mean, the Chiefs, Zach, you take, what was the name of that schlub that beat the Broncos when?
Matt Moore.
Thank you. All right, Matt Moore. Matt Moore, even with that offense, all right, he would have kept the Chiefs probably in the hunt. They probably still would have made the playoffs. He would have withered in the face of that Josh Allen onslaught in the division round. Despite having all that talent around him, it wouldn't have been the same thing. You needed that next level stud named Patrick Mahomes to unlock the full potential of what that collective, skill position talent brings to the table. And that's the thing for the Denver Broncos. They need that component. In fact, I would argue that's more important than the head coach. But in this situation, you got to get the head coach first.
First of all, welcome Nacho Fernandez. That's one of the cooler names we've had to grace the podcast. I just want to say, the Kansas City situation, Patrick Mahomes is a unicorn as a quarterback, and Andy Reid is a unicorn, I believe, as an offensive head coach. So I wouldn't aspire to reach that magnitude, but yeah, they did an upgrade for sure at both spots, and you're not going to win. You're not going to go very far unless you have an elite quarterback, or the other factor here is a elite coach that can get elite production out of a non-elite quarterback. Chad, I want to bring up one thing real quick, though, before we segue. I want to give a shout-out to Bryce, who tagged us on Twitter about an update on Nathaniel Hackett and his second interview in Denver. According to Andrew Mason, this is 24 years ago, Mason of DNVR, he says there is a flight scheduled to leave at 6:30 p.m. Mountain from Centennial Airport to Green Bay, but as of this moment, per FlightAware, it has not departed yet. So the steak must be good at Elway's tonight, I gather. Or
it is good. We've had it.
That's right. And Peyton and company really, really like Nathaniel Hackett. So again, the longer this drags on before we get that social media announcement like the Broncos have completed their second interview, it's good news, I think, for old Hackett.
Jaden Torres, thank you, bro. If we don't get Rodgers or Wilson, please don't get Jimmy. I'd much rather have Kirk Cousins. Great show, guys. I think Nathaniel gets the job. Appreciate that, Jaden. I would prefer Cousins over Jimmy too, but I don't like Cousins. I think Cousins is one of the most overrated quarterbacks of the modern era. Sorry, that's the truth. And he's way too pricey for what he brings to the table. Cost is not commensurate to production when it comes to Kirk Cousins. And, he puts up the stats, Zach. But when the chips are down, whether it's situation or moment, whatever, he doesn't have the wherewithal to put the team on the shoulders and will it to victory. That's the missing component for Cousins. He's done it at times, but in the grand scheme, the meta-analysis, he's lacking in that department.
Yeah, I'm for sure with you on that. I echo that point.
Sam Bam, hate to admit it, but it does seem to you. But does it seem to you that Peyton works harder than Elway did as GM? Elway seemed to make gut decisions, and Peyton makes sure he takes his time to make the best. I don't know if it's works harder, etc. He is a younger man, obviously, by about 20 some odd years than John Elway. And so he's kind of in the zone. He's still got to build his own legend. I mean, I don't think anyone ever questioned John Elway's work ethic, but I agree with you, Sam, that Elway was a much more gut feel type of leader, type of executive. And if there's anything we've learned about George Payton, Zach, it's that this cat is thorough. He's a thorough dude. He's going to do the due diligence. And so far, I think it's served Denver well. We'll see how well it serves him in the head coaching hire.
I did want to make one comment about Cousins, and I had kind of a brain fart. I agree with you that at his current cost, $45 million cap hit, no way, no how. But if Minnesota wants to eat like half of that, you can get to the playoffs with Kirk Cousins. I'm not a Kirk Cousins hater. I would take him in a heartbeat over Jimmy G. Not as a long-term guy, but as a holdover, he'd be the best holdover the Broncos have had, in this last 5-year run, including Flacco, Case Keenum, and Teddy Bridgewater. So that could be an option if he wants to reunite with his Vikings quarterback. I'd prefer Aaron or maybe a younger guy, like rookie quarterback, but you could do worse, I think.
It makes a lot of sense, and that's what kind of, as a non-Kirk Cousins guy, kind of frightens me a little bit, is Peyton was part of that executive team that won the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes 2018. Was it 2018? Yeah, 2018. Shane Daniels, good to see you. The Aviator. Rooting for Hackett, says Shane, we need to be like the teams in the championship games. All offensive-minded coaches. 3 are first-time hires. I'd be down for a Vegas draft meetup. Good to know, my friend. Good to know. Yeah, I mean, you look at the 4 we got the God King as well. Mark Langley in the house. What's up, my guys? I'm in Mesa, Arizona right now. Just wanted to say I hope all is well, especially you, Chad. Good to see you back, big dog. Hackett, #Hackett Machete. Yes, indeed. Yep, it's all good. Thank you, bro. Great to see you. Appreciate the support. Really appreciate both of you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Brad Murdoch, if Hackett gets hired, would they go after someone like Mike Zimmer for DC or hold on to Ed Donatel? That's $1 million question that no one truly knows the answer to at this stage. But I got to assume they're holding on to Donatel for a reason. So I think George Payton's maybe trying to foist that on the head coach in a sense, like, hey, we've got, and why wouldn't you? Again, if you're Nathaniel Hackett, maybe you have a bro out there that you can't wait to make your defensive coordinator when you get your first head coach job. Maybe, and he probably does have a few guys in that Rolodex that he would have in mind. But Vic Fangio is his scheme anyway, is the Sean McVay of defense right now, where the NFL's trying to copy it. They're trying to, pop a sprig off that trunk of the tree and bury it and, water it and hope it grows into something similar. Ed Donatel is like almost a full-size trunk growing off that thing itself. So I would assume if you're Nathaniel Hackett, you're going to err on the side of that wisdom and that experience and the expertise in the scheme, but who knows, man. And Mike Zimmer, I've always been a huge Mike Zimmer fan as a defensive guy. Obviously didn't work out so well for him as a head coach. But as a defensive coordinator, I would love Mike Zimmer in Denver. It'd be a scheme change, but you probably have the horses to pull it off.
Gerard Mayo, Mike Zimmer, Ed Donatel, I think any of those 3 paired with someone like Nathaniel Hackett or Kevin O'Connell would be the right move.
Andrew Baker, good to see you, bro. He says, I'm scared if we get Rodgers, we get 1 seeds, but not winning the big one. I want to do it right, drafting, developing our quarterback. But with this draft class, should we wait a year or more to draft a quarterback? MHH for life, Denver Broncos for life. Yeah, dude, it's $1 million question. I mean, that was kind of the book on Peyton, if you'll remember. All right, when Peyton came here, he'd been to 2 Super Bowls, lost a lot of big games in the playoffs, 1 ring. But you don't really look at that. You look at it from a perspective, Zach, of what would he be like in our football environment? What would he be like? How would he produce with our coaches? How would he produce when the chips are down with our collection of talent here in Denver? And that's how you base the decision. Not can't win. I mean, that's an organizational failure. Green Bay's trips to the dance and just not getting back over the hump since 2010. I mean, that's an organizational catastrophic failure. I wouldn't necessarily pin that on A-Rod, although he has complicity. I'm just telling you, when it's an organization failing to get over the hump like that year after year, it's the organization, in my opinion, more so than pointing to the quarterback, etc.
It's never just one thing. There's always usually other factors at play. And what happened in Green Bay and what Rodgers is kind of intimating is that Matt LaFleur can't win the big one. He's gotten close, but no cigar. And you can question as of right now whether he is a Super Bowl caliber coach.
So since Aaron Rodgers hoisted the Lombardi Trophy following the 2010 season, he went to the playoffs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times out of the, 12 seasons? Or is that 11 seasons? Either way, Let's just look at 2021 divisional round, bounced. 2020 got to the conference title game, bounced by Tom Brady. 19 got to the conference title game, bounced by Jimmy G and the Niners at home. 2016 got to the conference title game, bounced by Dan Quinn's Falcons. And then from there, it's division. It was in the conference title game, Zach, in 2014 when the Seahawks beat them to advance to the Super Bowl and lose in just agonizing fashion to the Patriots. There's a lot of losses there, but I think it has, again, I focus it more on the coaching. I focus it more on the organization. And sometimes look at what it did for Peyton, man. Just being in the bosom of a new organization, and not just a new organization, but a winning culture, like from an organization macro standpoint. It's been dark days for Denver lately, Zach, but the Broncos have a juice. They have a magic. They have a history in the league. And I think that kind of magic could serve a guy like Aaron. If you wanted to, say, I'm going to do the Peyton Manning thing, give it a 3 to 5 year window before I hang up my cleats.
If he wants to follow in those footsteps, does he want to be the next Broncos quarterback after Elway and Peyton, or does he want to forge his own path with either Green Bay, retirement, Jeopardy, or another suitor out there? So he doesn't even know yet, so it's pointless for us to speculate. There's a better chance they will get Rodgers if they hire Hackett. That's my
Gerald
interpretation.
Hill, thank you, bro. Love the show. Hope we get Hackett. I wouldn't go for Rodgers. Our division quarterbacks, Mahomes, Herbert, will be competitive for years. I'd rather get someone that can do the same. # Broncos for life. Yeah, in a perfect world. But again, does this class have that option for you? And if it doesn't, use that first round pick and go get Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly. If you want to compete with Mahomes and Herbert, you need a quarterback that can compete with them, and that's Aaron. You need a talent like Mahomes and Herbert. That I don't think that'd be Kenny Pickett in year one, or Matt Corral, Carson Strong, Sam Howell. I mean, we all want the next Josh Allen, but he has to be in a class to be selected to be the next Josh Allen, and I don't see the next Allen or Mahomes or Herbert in this year's class.
All right, guys, we are about out of time. Let's grab Miguel, who's been a patient boy waiting. He says, did y'all see that the winner of the coin toss has a 91% basically chance of winning in overtime? I think that needs to change. Yes, indeed. I think that's just part of the, I don't know what you would do to make overtime more equitable in the playoffs. Zach, what would you do?
Belichick had his proposal, I don't know when, that he said 10-minute quarter, no sudden death. The coin flip doesn't matter. Treat it like a regular game. Whoever has the
go down to the wire at the end of 10 minutes.
Whoever has the higher score at the end of 10 minutes wins. But you know what, to your point, Miguel, if the Buffalo Bills wanted to get the ball back, stop Kansas City. They went right down the field effortlessly and scored a game-winning touchdown. They couldn't even hold them to a field goal. I feel like the NFL made it more equitable by giving the other team a possession if they kick a field goal and not score a touchdown. I mean, how much more do you want? That's the game. You got to stop them if you want to win.
I mean, that's the problem is, how long does an NBA game go for? 2 hours if it's a long one, right? I mean, I'm in real time. The problem with the NFL is you get your butts in seats as fans, whether you're on the couch or in the stadium. You're there for 3.5 hours, usually 3 to 3.5 hours, all right, of real time. And then you throw in there a full 10-minute quarter as a fifth option when you go to overtime. Like, I can understand the NFL's reluctance to put something like that and codify it into the rule book, but at the same time, all right, don't do 10 minutes. Take half of that or 6 minutes and no kickoffs or something. Everyone starts on the 25 or whatever. I don't know. Find a way to kind of microwave it a little bit. Maybe that is something you could do to make it more equitable. I would be all for it for the playoffs. I think it would be a little pedantic for the regular season, Zach. For the playoffs, it would be cool to see it transition. And it would make sense to do that because this is the freaking playoffs, man. If we lose, we're done. Like, down to the wire. Let's go.
I mean, I feel like we were robbed of additional legendary football, but I don't feel too bad for Buffalo. They blew that game twice in regulation and overtime. So, again,
I feel bad for Josh Allen, though. I got to be honest. And I feel bad a little bit for Brian Daboll because that magic that they created this year, I mean, if I'm Buffalo, I'm finding any way I can to keep that cat in the offensive coordinator position. Doug Raquel, I hope we go offense with our first head coach, with our choice for head coach. Could Wink Martindale be our DC? That's something you've been floating quite a bit the last week or so, Zach, since he was fired. But, remember, Wink was the DC in Denver after Mike Nolan was fired. Mike Nolan was Josh McDaniels' first DC. Then he fired him, scapegoated him. And then it was Wink for 2010, promoted from linebackers coach to defensive coordinator, if I'm not mistaken. And that 2010 Bronco defense was so bad, it got you Von Miller as the number 2 overall pick the next year. So I don't know, man. Obviously Wink's done better since then, Zach, and he's probably learned a lot as a play caller. But my experience with him as the defensive coordinator here, albeit a decade ago, makes me very cool on his prospects as a DC now.
Yeah, again, you wonder if his scheme is conducive for the Broncos defense because he plays the one gap, cover zero looks, and in a division that has Mahomes and Carr and Herbert, I don't think you want to go cover zero against them. So he would be a backup, I think, for Zimmer. But if they go for Hackett or O'Connell, you can't pair a rookie head coach with a rookie DC. So you're going to have a veteran coordinator on staff. And if they go that route, Zimmer, Martindale, or Donatel would be my preferences.
All right, last one, guys, and then we gotta go. Well, maybe we don't. Maybe there are more. I don't know. We only have a few more minutes, though, so we got to rapid fire. Phil says, hello, Zach, Chad. Great show as usual. Thank you, bro. What are your thoughts on Robinson, Cam Robinson on the right side of the line? This was an option floated by Mike Evans today, Zach, at milehighhuddle.com. Your thoughts, Cam Robinson, Denver Broncos right tackle.
It just would be a continuation of what they've done, which is a slap a Band-Aid on a wound for the past 5 years. It's time they use a blue chip draft choice on that position and get the guy for the long term and don't keep rotating veteran right tackles, Jags in and out every year. Maybe bring back Bobby Massey on a 1-year deal for insurance, but you got to invest premium-wise in that position for once. And I'm right there with William Catalano, who says draft a right tackle. I've been banging that table for quite a while now.
Timmy Shields, thank you, my friend. He says, I do not want to give up 3 first-rounders to get Rodgers for, 1 to 3 years max? Then what? Chiefs and Chargers are back on top, and we're back to the bottom. No way. Roll with Locke and draft in 2023. It's not a solution I hate, as you guys have heard me say, but it's a tough situation to be in because the Broncos aren't exactly afforded all the time in the world. They've missed the playoffs now 6 straight years. Like, they got to move the needle somehow this year. And you might not have the means to do that in this year's draft with the quarterbacks that are available. Rodgers would do it, though. Wilson would do it, though. But you're paying through the nose.
And don't underestimate the fact that George Payton is going to feel a lot more pressure in year 2 than in year 1. The honeymoon's over. The mulligans are done with. He's going to be under new ownership. He's going to handpick his coaching staff and his quarterback. It falls on him from this point forward fully, so he has to get it right. I don't think he would give up 3 first-round picks, but it's a non-zero chance that he would make that trade. Put it that way.
And we probably, Zach, shouldn't sleep as much as I maybe am on the possibility of Kirk Cousins coming here, because you fail to get Aaron Rodgers. That's a quick upgrade. You can make some hay with probably. I wouldn't love it, but I wouldn't absolutely hate it either. Victor, so has everyone written off Deshaun Watson? Man, I don't know. If something illegal happened, I think he would have been arrested or charged already. It's not so much even legality here, Victor. It's PR. It's toxic, radioactive. No team wants to touch that. So it is what it is.
It's almost like how Ray Rice never got a chance. I know what he did was on camera and a lot worse than relatively speaking, than what Deshaun Watson's being accused of. He's in the process, I believe, of settling out of court and dealing with those 22 allegations of sexual misconduct. But how could you bring a guy and make him the face of the franchise, pay him all that money when those things are still going to be haunting him? He's radioactive until proven otherwise.
And he might not get a criminal charge, but that doesn't make him any less radioactive because, NFL teams, especially at that position, you can't have a guy with that many unresolved
Exactly. It wasn't just one or two. It's 22.
22. I mean, we're talking Bill Cosby over here almost, right? Murdoch, thanks, buddy. Ronquillo, you the man. All right, Zach,
good.
If you want to go through the rundown, I'll see if Facebook's working tonight.
Did we get to all the supers? I feel like we're kind of we did? Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
I feel like we missed Bryce though. Who asked us to pull up his super about Hackett's plane, if we can just
let me see if I can find it on the back end.
But I'll start going through the rundown as I tend to do around this time. Thank you all for tuning in with us tonight. This was the Huddle Up Podcast. Until we see you guys next time, which is Wednesday evening. And there it is, Bryce, $4.99 super. I mentioned it earlier, but we want to give you your shine. And thank you so much for chiming in tonight. Hackett's flight to Green Bay keeps getting delayed on Twitter per Andrew Mason. Sounds like Hackett and Peyton are hitting it off. I think so, Chad.
Yeah,
activity time.
I think they're going to hire him. We'll see.
Anyway, thanks again, Bryce. That was the Huddle Up Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Huddle Up Pod. You can follow the main account for all your Broncos news and coaching updates, by the way, at Mile High Huddle. Follow Chad on Twitter at Chad and Jensen. Follow myself at Kelberman NFL. Follow Scott on Twitter at Scout Kennedy. If you want a beanie, you want a hat like Chad's wearing, a shirt like Chad's wearing, a hoodie like I'm wearing, go to huddleuppod.com and get yourself a piece of swag. Our pop-up shop is up and running, very hot right now. Huddleuppod.com. Check that out. Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. Hit that big blue button. We have 3 shows every single week. Chad's on one, which is Broncos Book Club. I'm on one, Kelberman's Corner. And we have Eric Trickle at Trickle Zone. So $5 a month, worth every penny. And Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. Like that page and follow that page. If you haven't, guys, go to Apple Podcasts and leave your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win. Could be a hoodie, could be a beanie each and every month. But guys, do these 3 things, please. We beg of you. Subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Amen. And we love each and every one of you. Appreciate everything y'all do for us. Shout out to these Facebook just animals tonight. Rodney Garcia just throwing down. Michael Ronquillo throwing down. Howie frickin' Day. Jacob Foster. Doug Raquel. Andrew Baker. Tabitha. Claude. Phil. Brad Murdoch. Marcus Lewis Henna. C. Patrick Havener. Lawrence Rivera, Victor Marquez, Sebastian Walker, much love and respect. And then these names here, I'm not going to be able to share it, but I'm going to read them. These Super Chat superstars: Christian, Antonio, Jonathan, Mark, Chase, Nathan, Duchess, Fernando, Jaden, Sam Bam, Shane, Mark, Gerald, Timmy, and Bryce, a.k.a. Bryce Mindset. Much love and respect. Appreciate each and every one of you. We'll see you on Wednesday. And I'm sure, Zach, by then we'll have, I'm almost certain, some news, some resolution to sink our teeth into.
Hey, we could be going over the new Broncos head coach, and his name could be Nathaniel Hackett. Tune in, guys, Wednesday evening, 6 o'clock Mountain, 8 o'clock Eastern. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.
You've been listening to the Huddle Up Podcast. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.